Assalamu alaikum students. This is your instructor Muhammad Umar Khatak for the course Organizational Theory and Behavior. And this is our 15th lecture in chapter number 4. Emotional labor, effective events theory and emotional intelligence are going to be the topics of the discussion today. Emotional labor. A situation in which employee expresses organizationally desired emotions during interpersonal transactions at work. Now, if you've ever had a job in retail sales or waited on tables in a restaurant, you know the importance of projecting a friendly demeanor and smiling. Even though there were days when you didn't feel cheerful, you knew management expected you to be upbeat when dealing with the customers. So, you faked it. Every employee expends physical and mental labor by putting body and mind, respectively, into the job. But jobs also require emotional labor, an employee's expression of organizationally desired emotion during interpersonal transaction at work. The concept of emotional labor emerged from the studies of service jobs. Airline expects their flight attendants to be cheerful. We expect doctors emotionally neutral. But emotional labor is relevant to almost every job. At the least, your managers expect you to be courteous, not hostile, in your interaction with co-workers. The true challenge arises when employees have to project one emotion while feeling another. This disparity is emotional dissonance, and it can take a heavy toll. Inconsistency between the emotions people feel and the emotions they project. Bottled up feelings of frustration, anger, and resentment can eventually lead to emotional exhaustion and burnout. It's from the increasing importance of emotional labor as a key component of effective job performance that we have come to understand the relevance of emotion within the field of OB. Emotional labor creates dilemmas for employees. There are people with whom you have to work that you just plain don't like. Maybe you consider their personality abrasive. Maybe you know they have said negative things about you behind your back. Regardless, your job requires you to interact with these people on a regular basis. So you are forced to feign friendliness and fake. It can help you on the job, especially if you separate emotions into felt and displayed emotions. Felt emotions and individuals' actual emotions. In contrast, displayed emotions are those that the organization requires workers to show and consider appropriate in a given job. They are not innate. Emotions that are organizationally required and considered appropriate in a given job. They are not innate, they are learned. The ritual look of delight on the face of the first runners-up as the new Miss America is announced is a product of display rule that losers should mask their sadness with an expression of joy for the winners. Similarly, most of us know we are expected to act sad at funerals, regardless of whether we consider the person's death a loss, and to appear happy at weddings, even if we don't feel like celebrating. Surface acting. Displaying fake emotion requires us to suppress real ones. Surface acting is hiding inner feelings and foregoing emotional expression in response to display rules. A worker who smiles at a customer even when he doesn't feel like it is surface acting. Research suggests that at US workplaces, it is expected that we should typically display positive emotions like happiness and excitement and suppress negative emotions like fear, anger, disgust, and contempt. Effective managers have learned to be serious when giving an employee a negative performance evaluation and hide their inner anger when they're being passed over for promotion. A salesperson who hasn't learned to smile and appear friendly despite his or her true feelings at the moment typically won't last long in the job. How we experience an emotion isn't always the same as how we show it. Deep acting. When we are trying to modify our true inner feelings based on display rules. A healthcare provider trying to genuinely feel more empathy. Surface acting deals with displayed emotions, and deep acting deals with felt emotions. Research shows that surface acting is more stressful to employees because it entails denying their true emotions. Displaying emotions we don't really feel is exhausting. Effective events theory. We have seen that emotion and moods are an important part of our lives and our work lives. But how do they influence our job performance and satisfaction? A model called effective events theory demonstrates that employees react emotionally to things that happen to them at work, and this reaction influences their job performance and satisfaction. The theory begins by recognizing that emotions are a response to an event in the work environment. The work environment includes everything surrounding the job, the variety of tasks and degrees of autonomy, job demands, and requirements for expressing emotional labor. Examples of hassles and colleagues who refuse to carry their share of work, conflicting directions from different managers, and excessive time pressures, uplifting events including meeting a goal, getting support from a colleague, and receiving recognition for an accomplishment. These work events trigger positive or negative emotional reactions, to which employees' personalities and moods predispose them to respond with greater or lesser intensity. People who score low on emotional stability are more likely to react strongly to negative events, and our emotional response to a given event can change depending on mood. Finally, emotions influence a number of performance and satisfaction variables, such as organizational citizenship behavior, organizational commitment, level of effort, intention to quit, and workplace deviances. Test of effective events theory suggests the following. An emotional episode is actually a series of emotional experiences, precipitated by a single event and containing elements of both emotions and mood cycles. Current emotions influence job satisfaction at any given time, along with the history of emotions surrounding the event. Because moods and emotions fluctuate over time, their effect on performance also fluctuates. Emotion-driven behavior are typically short in duration and of high variability. Because emotions, even positive ones, tend to be incompatible with behaviors required to do a job, they typically have a negative influence on job performance. Consider an example. Say you work as an aeronautical engineer for Boeing. Because of the downturn in demand for commercial jets, you have just learned the company is considering laying off 10,000 employees, possibly including you. The event is likely to make you feel negative emotions, especially fear that you might lose your primary source of income. And because you're prone to worry a lot and obsess about problems, this event increases your feelings of insecurity. The layoff also sets in motion a series of smaller events that create an episode. You talk with your boss and he assures you your job is safe. You hear rumors your department is high on the list to be eliminated, and you run into a former colleague who was laid off 6 months ago and still hasn't found work. These events in turn create emotional ups and downs. One day you're feeling upbeat that you will survive the cuts, the next you might be depressed and anxious. These emotional swings take your attention away from your work and lower your job performance and satisfaction. Finally, your response is magnified because this is the fourth largest layoff Boeing has initiated in the past 3 years. In summary, events theory offers two important messages. First, emotions provide valuable insights into how workplace events, hassles, and uplifting events influence employee performance and satisfaction. Second, employees and managers should not ignore emotions or the events that cause them, even when they appear minor, because they accumulate. Emotional intelligence. It is a person's ability to perceive emotions in the self and others, understanding the meaning of these emotions and regulate one's emotions according in a cascading model. People who know their own emotions and are good in reading emotion cues, for instance, knowing when they're angry and how to express themselves without violating norms, are most likely to be effective. Several studies suggest emotional intelligence plays an important role in job performance. One study that used functional magnetic resonance imaging (MRI) technology found executive MBA students who performed best on the strategic decision-making tasks were more likely to incorporate emotion centers of the brain into their choice process. The students also de-emphasized the use of more cognitive parts of their brains. Another study looked at the success and failures of 11 US presidents from Franklin Roosevelt to Bill Clinton and evaluated them on six qualities: communication, organization, political skill, vision, cognitive style, and emotional intelligence. The key quality that differentiated the successful, such as Roosevelt, Kennedy, and Reagan, from the unsuccessful, such as Johnson, Carter, and Nixon, was emotional intelligence. One simulation study also showed that students who were good at identifying and distinguishing among their own feelings were able to make more profitable investment decisions. EI, emotional intelligence, has been a controversial concept in organizational behavior, with supporters and detractors. The case for emotional intelligence. The argument in favor of emotional intelligence include its intuitive appeal, the fact that it predicts criteria that matter, and the idea that it is biologically based. Intuitive appeal. Almost everyone agrees it is good to possess social intelligence. Intuition suggests people can detect emotions in others, control their own emotions, and handle social interactions well, have a powerful leg up in the business world. Partners in a multinational consulting firm who scored above the median on emotional intelligence measure delivered $1.2 million more on business than did the other partners. Emotional intelligence predicts criteria that matter. Evidence suggests a high level of emotional intelligence means a person will perform well on the job. One study found emotional intelligence predicted the performance of employees in a cigarette factory in China. Another study found the ability to recognize emotion in others' facial expressions and to emotionally eavesdrop, pick up subtle signals about people's emotions, predicted peer ratings of how valuable people were to the organization. Emotional intelligence is biologically based. In one study, people with damage to the brain area that governs emotional processing, part of the prefrontal cortex, scored no lower on standard measures of intelligence than people without similar damage. But they scored significantly lower on emotional intelligence tests and were impaired in normal decision making, as demonstrated by their poor performance in a card game with monetary rewards. This study suggests emotional intelligence is neurologically based in a way that is unrelated to the standard measure of intelligence. The case against emotional intelligence. For all its supporters, emotional intelligence has just as many critics who say it is vague and impossible to measure, and they question its validity. Emotional intelligence researchers do not agree on definitions. To many researchers, it's not clear what EI is because researchers use different definitions of the construct. Some researchers have focused on emotional intelligence via tests with right and wrong answers, scoring the ability to recognize and control emotions. This is the ability-based perspective on emotional intelligence. Others focus on emotional intelligence as a broad variety of constructs that can be measured by self-reports and are connected primarily by the fact that they are not redundant with cognitive intelligence. Not only are these two definitions different, but the measures used by each perspective are barely correlated with one another. Emotional intelligence can be measured. Many critics have raised questions about measuring emotional intelligence. Because emotional intelligence is a form of intelligence, they argue there must be right and wrong answers for it on tests. Some tests do have right and wrong answers, although the validity of some of the questions is doubtful. One measure asks you to associate feelings with colors, as if purple always makes us feel cool and not warm. Other measures are self-reported, such as I am good at reading other people and have no right or wrong answers. However, these self-report measures could reflect a variety of non-ability related constructs like general self-esteem or self-efficacy. The measure of emotional intelligence are diverse, and researchers have not subjected them to much rigorous study as they have measures of personality and general intelligence. Emotional intelligence is nothing but personality with a different label. Some critics argue that because emotional intelligence is so closely related to intelligence and personality, once you control for these factors, it has nothing unique to offer. There is some foundation to this argument. Emotional intelligence appears to be correlated with measures of personality, especially emotional stability. Emotion regulation. Have you ever tried to cheer yourself up when you're feeling down? Or calm yourself when you're feeling angry? If so, you have engaged in emotional regulation, which is part of the emotional intelligence literature but has also been studied as an independent concept. That would be the end of the topic. Thank you.